Would you like to see what we do here? Would you like to walk around? Sure. Okay. So we dug all those lakes. We made them here. There was no water on the land. We planted all the palm trees and banana trees just to show that you can live with nature and high tech without destroying it. This is supported by cantilever beams under the roadway. When the weather is warm, the alligators come out. They swim along. So we're going to Roxanne's work area. This is Roxanne's working area. And this is where Roxanne edits the films. If you understand the Venus Project, there's nothing in it to hurt anybody. That the capitalists today will live better in the future than the wealthiest people today. The system I'm talking about will give everybody a very powerful lifestyle. The earth will be used to raise every human being to their highest potential, if you understand. If a person says, I'm against the Venus Project, it's probably because of their own projections. They picture a lot of scientists in gray. You will work in Area D. You, Area K. You know, all that's nothing, has to do with Hollywood, has nothing to do with the future. So let's walk around and look at the rest of the place. Are you guys in the walking mood?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's go. I'll take you to a place where you can get a good picture. You got a camera?
Yeah.
We built this bridge years ago, and the purpose was to put water tubes in there and electric lines in the other to be able to carry the lines across the water.
This is a nice shot if you want to do some filming.
Yeah, if you want a pretty shot, I would say about here. Well, this house was built many years ago, and then we built that balcony. We dug out this area, and then alligators came from Fish-Eating Creek. They crawled over here and settled down. We have everything from wild boar to alligators to raccoons to panther and bear. This is just Florida as it really used to be. It's untouched. We're not going to touch this area. That's the lab where I used to do a lot of experiments with lighting systems and testing things. But we'll go into the interesting buildings that have more things you can photograph. Yeah. These are just future projections. If the Venus Project becomes a reality, we will put up large buildings in dry dock. That's like you build boats. A machine like this will travel along, putting in the windows, doing the whole building. And when the buildings are finished, say 25 of these buildings are finished in dry dock, then we let the water in. And then we float the building. The whole building is floated out to the site. And we use water jets under the building. And with 1 pound of pressure, you can move 1 ton of weight. And we slide the whole building finished into position. or Jimmy Carter with his hammer and nails, you're not going to change the world. It'd take 10 years to change the earth to a second Garden of Eden. If you get rid of hand labor, this machine would take laser beams, which they're using for killing machines. They want to use laser beams and destroy cities instead of bombs. The army is really dangerous people. And this machine moves along with the laser beams, melting the earth underneath it to obsidian, which is like glass. You travel along at 15 miles an hour, this can change its shape. We will build these big canals all through Africa for desalination without mixing concrete. Not only that, the standard of living will go up very fast. It doesn't take thousands of years. Then this machine here will lower this over the salt water. The sun shining on it will cause the water to evaporate, and it's collected in here in the trough. So we get all the drinking water without burning fossil fuel. With all the floods you got today, pay $1 for a glass of water. Really ridiculous society. Now, if you come over here, I don't think it's wise for any single nation to go out into space. I don't think we're intelligent enough to use space wisely. I feel if the nations of the world learn to work together and live together in peace, we should go out as a joint venture to benefit everyone on Earth. If we fail to do that, I am fairly certain that nuclear weapons will be put out there if single nations go out. It only becomes another potential battlefield. Anyway, these are space stations without people. So you can do chemical experiments. You have a replica of this on Earth, and you move all the stuff in space. You don't even put people out there. This gadget here would be above the moon, containing oxygen, spare parts, in case you needed anything to repair anything. Otherwise, you die on the moon. I'd like about 8 of these between the Earth and Mars. Warehouse for spare parts, whatever you may need. Otherwise, if something happens, too bad. You know what I mean? And so there's a bunch of miniature robots for kids, space voyages, space stations. Sketches of the future. These are different types of buildings. These are exhibition buildings for a World's Fair. This is a double dome molded together. 3 domes. And this is what's under the domes. Rebars like this. All of the lines of stress go down to the ground. So even in the event of an earthquake, if it cracked, it can't cave in because of these structures. The bathrooms of the future. All the water used in the sink, the wastewater fills this box, and you flush the John with it. You don't waste it. We use 40% of our water down the toilet, our drinking water. Instead of telling people to conserve water, we build it in. That means that the wastewater from the sink flows by gravity around, and we flush the John with it. If you step over here, you will see another building, which is a skyscraper, essentially a skyscraper, and it's stabilized by these 3 columns and shape memory alloys, which will help the structure resist the effects of an earthquake. These are the types of airplanes you'll have in the future. Here is the story of aviation. If I show kids the airplanes of the future, I have to tell them that it doesn't start this way. It goes through all these different stages. Then you get the variations on the flying wing. And this is variations in aircraft of the future. These are the airplanes of the future. We have to make these models to show people what the future might be like. When you talk about it, you don't show them anything. They don't visualize anything. And this is another type. Then you get to helicopters. Today they look like this because everybody goes to the same school. And if the blades turn that way, the body tends to turn the other way, and this fan pulls it back. So you get oscillation like that. The future helicopter will look like this. The engine will be half the size and on the wingtip. And it blows the blades around, but the center is stationary. There are two pendulums move up and back very fast. That keeps the center from turning. This is where it's going if we don't kill each other. And after the helicopter comes this. It takes off vertically, shuts, and flies forward. The many variations will also include the flying fuselage, which is aerodynamically shaped and will take off vertically and move forward. All boundary layer controlled by electronic means. You see the rudder on here? Down here there's no rudder. We control the air by boundary layer control. And these are drawings and photographs of models. This is to get kids interested in science. I say to the kid, when this automobile gets close to that car, it can't touch it. And this interests the kids in it very much because kids are interested in magnets. See? So I get them interested in science. Don't talk science or give me equations. Show them something. See, how does that work? And we show them the airplanes of the future. And the kid says, which one will be final? I says, never final, always changing. Then there's the city of the future. This might be public health. If you work in the public health department during the transition, you can live here if you choose to. You can live any place you want to. You can live outside the city. And if a person doesn't want to live in the city, you can live on a lake in floating domes. Those are floating domes with a glass bottom so you can see the bottom. But the purpose of this arrangement is we only design 1/8 and then reproduce it. Makes it much cheaper, much faster. All the waste is recycled under the roadways. The roadways are all black, and there's piping running up and back. And in Florida, you can get 40 watts for every square yard. So you need no outside power. Self-sustained cities. This has to do with construction of bridges, production of food stuff, but you have no parasitic professions. The first city will be the planning center. The middle building has dental care, medical care, shopping, child care, everything that this group needs. So it's the same distance from your residential to the shopping center. But if you build an ordinary city, you have to take your kids to school that way, shopping is the other way, clothing and garments. This is all centralized. This is an art center, music center, and you have a library here, but the library has books which are free. Here you have camera center. Anybody in the community can go in and check out a camera, just like the library. Here you have any musical instrument you want, saxophone, violin, just like the library. That's the end of most crime. When people have access to the necessities of life, they don't steal. Nobody takes extra air home at night from outside, but it's absolutely essential for life, but there's so much of it. Now we're running out of water, so you have to pay for $1 for a glass of water. So we will produce an abundance. Some people don't like living in individual houses. They'd rather live in an apartment. There's a swimming pool, gymnasium, art class, dental, mechanical, shopping, everything is in this building. So if you got a heart attack, they don't need to call an ambulance. They have the medical department in there. You talk about the word caring. That's what it means. This is indoor agriculture. This is golf courses for those that like golf. You have golf clubs in here. This is a clubhouse. You come to the golf course and you check out your own clubs. Play, leave them there. Otherwise you're lugging all that crap home. You got a closet full of shit. This way, the golf clubs are there for everybody's use. You know what I mean? That makes the golf clubs go 10 times as far. And that goes for everything. Over here you have hundreds of bicycles, all stainless steel or titanium. And you ride them through the country and leave them there. You don't own anything anymore. Everything is there for your use. Nobody owns it probably, no rent, no taxation, no armies, no navies. It's using the earth intelligently and managing resources so everyone lives well. This is everything that all the religions talk about, but you don't know how to attain it. Now we go this way. Now this gadget, this merry-go-round, we build a city. We build a city of the future and put it on here. Then we swing it. We put an airplane where my hand is and a camera. You get the illusion of flying over a city. You get it? We don't have Spielberg budget, so we have to make all this sort of thing.
We
Then
call
we
it
show
no
how
budget productions.
we're losing topsoil all over the world and what to do about it. Did you know 600 feet under the Sahara Desert, there's rivers, lots of water? We can give water to all the Arab nations. We don't use technology, we use businessmen and government. Now, if you follow me, I'll show you where I do most of my work. This is where I do most of my model building and filming. So this gives you an idea. We don't sit around here. We really have been working and trying to get the information out. And all of this is changeable. None of this is permanent. Not everybody wants to live in a dome, so we have all kinds of variations. There has to be a place to rest and relax on the building. So we have many different configurations for people to pick from. Then we photograph all these models, as you see on the wall over there behind you. Those are photographs of models. And I wanted to tell you how you pick your house in the future. You sit in front of a plastic bubble and you say, I want a home. And the bubble is the architect. It says, what kind of home? And you say, I'm not sure. So different houses appear and turn around. When you say stop, it stops. Then your husband says, I'd like to see the floor plan, the roof lifts off. And you say, can you move the children's room next to the adult bedroom? And it moves. Then she says, I think I'd like the sink about here. And it appears. So you verbalize what you want. The architect does not design the building that he thinks you want. So when you get through talking, it says, the machine says to you, would you like a virtual experience? You say, what's that? Would you like to see what it looks like? So you go into a big dome, and there's a facsimile there, projection of what you talked about. And you say, I didn't think the sink would be that low. So it starts moving up. You say when? Now. So each home is exactly as you verbalize. So putting children in our homes today is wrong. The toilet bowl is too big for them. They can't reach anything. So the toilet bowl is small, and it moves as they grow. It gets larger and larger. It's made of shaped memory alloys, which I'll show you. Everything is smart and very different than anything you've ever experienced. Whatever their profession is, the home will be designed to suit your needs. Has nothing to do with architect designing house with 15 different roofs. Say, look what I can afford. They'll be functional to your needs. So if you're an anthropologist or sociologist, you'll have a library on sociology without a price tag. Because the more access you have to information, the better you are at your subject. Everybody's not going to live in a dome. They're going to live in whatever they choose to live in. And this is different types of architecture for people with different tastes. Well, if you come over here now, this might be lifestyles of the future. This person may want to live in something like that. All this slides open in nice weather. The ships are monitored by satellite, so you know where every plane is, every ship. And so all these boats and things are there for your use. You don't own anything. And if you don't own anything and you have access to anything you want, no one's going to hit you on the head and take your binoculars. They can get them at the camera center. It's cheaper to give things to people than put them in jail. It costs $50,000 to keep a kid in jail a year, $75,000 for an adult. It's cheaper to make an access and give them whatever the hell they need. Do you understand what I'm saying? In that way, no one's going to hit you on the head and take your watch. Give them a watch. $50,000 a year. You know how many watches you can give away? All right. So the whole system is rotten to the core. Your schools, your banks, your fields, everything will be redesigned. Say you have a collection of paintings, originals, Picasso, all the great artists that you consider great. We will say to you in the future, would you mind putting your paintings on a world tour so everyone can enjoy them? He says, no, they're mine. So we put that in the bulletin. He said, no, they're mine. It won't take very long for the public, your friends, to persuade you to move them around. So what looks like artistic stuff up there has to take air currents and bring them down and ventilate areas with poor airflow. This is inflatable architecture. You can blow that up and the steel bands stop it when it's fully inflated. It's for traveling exhibits. And here, this is an extrusion. If you don't know what an extrusion is, it's really, if you take a toothpaste tube, if you cut the letter T in the opening and squeeze it, it'll come out like the letter T. That's how this is made. Aluminum, a machine forces it through openings, so it comes out 100 feet long. I just want to show you how complex it is, and that's the way we make houses. We put the die here, and we extrude the concrete out. We get 5 houses and cut them with a laser beam, and this machine picks them off, and this machine shoves the building onto the tower. And all of these are putting up buildings automatically without people. You don't work. There are no laborers of any kind. There's no bosses and nobody telling you what to do. You can live any lifestyle, but if you hurt somebody, you're helped. Like the doctors who live in the middle of the city, and they're responsible for the health of everyone in that city. If it drops below a certain standard, the doctors go back to school. Nobody's punished or beaten up. Okay. Architecture will vary. You have a wide range of options. These are called cable stayed structures. That is for exhibition buildings. You don't have any support structures in there. And they're good in earthquake zones. We won't build in earthquake zones, but if you had a cable structure there, it can swing and sway. So the future will have so many different types. This is a landing platform for aircraft. These are cable offshore buildings. In the future, Hong Kong is so crowded, you're going to have to go offshore. So the elevator travels in there, then it goes straight up to your apartment. There's no rent, no taxation, no money, no banks. You get rid of that crap, you get rid of all the problems. And this is landing platforms on the rooftop. And all rooftops will be gardens wherever possible. But cities in the sea, the purpose of these cities is to restore the oceans. We've killed the reefs, we've dumped garbage and oil all through the ocean, clean out bilges of ships. The U.S. Army dumped 65 tons of nerve gas into the ocean off Florida. We don't do that anymore. All these buildings are to clean the oceans and restore them again. So a big job of the future is just putting things back to their optimal position. And that's the government of the future. No people in government. The sooner you get rid of them, the better. Human government can't handle the vast array of conditions on Earth. Only computers can do that. Now, let me describe some of the functions. For example, we will get an entire picture of the Earth showing plant diseases, hurricanes, tornadoes, ice melting, temperature all over the world. This might be an image screen, and you might walk over to it and ask a question such as, how many planes are in the air at this instant? It'll tell you all about transportation, an entire inventory of everything on Earth. So you see, no human can do that. No human can handle thousands of bits of information per second. Not only will these machines handle the information, they will also be capable of modifying shipments, arranging for shipments, and transportation of goods and services throughout the world. Back here you have inventory for access centers. In other words, we can reorder materials without humans taking inventory. So it is not a takeover by machines. I want to make sure you understand that. Machines will be assigned these tasks only because they're far more capable of handling vast amounts of information for the benefit of all the world's people. This kind of bridge you might want to build in Canada with a traveling train underneath the bridge. It doesn't occupy the roadway. So bridges will vary in shape and design. Usually one structural member in the middle supporting the bridge. Airplanes will vary in shape, and automobiles, they'll be around for a little while, not too long. Then the adequate transportation will be designed. All you do is dial where you want to go. I did this about 65 years ago. But the motor is in the middle of the wheel, and you have no transmission or anything like that. All electric. And the batteries are called supercapacitors that can start off instantly and can be charged in a few seconds instead of overnight. How intelligent will machines be? How intelligent do you want them to be? In other words, you don't want to have to go to a gas station, get out and fill up. There's a prong that drops down. This will charge itself, plug in all automatically. But you don't need to do all that. There are machines in hospitals today that move down the corridor. When the battery is low, it goes over and it plugs itself into the wall. Did you know that? Just like you're told your door is open, your car won't start if your door is open in the future. And the motor, if anything goes wrong with it, you turn two handles down, pull it out, shove in the courtesy motor and lock it. And they work on you. You don't stop the whole car to service a $3 spring. This system is one gigantic system of waste. Any questions before we leave? This is aluminum and fiberglass. We tried this structure. Fiberglass, if it's a 1/4 inch thick and a tree falls on it, bounces off. So we wanted to try different structures, and we left the bare framing. You can see it's more than adequately braced. And if you ventilate through the center, you have a natural flow of air out and in. You know what I mean? Okay. we want to also bring up people to expect change,
Exactly.
emotionally and intellectually, so they don't get locked into, I want a house in the country with chickens and 3 kids, you know. Everything changes. Well, when the kid says, when you get this new world built, then what? They think that's the end. That's just the beginning of the next phase. But I do want to tell you that the Venus Project is not there to criticize, it's there to offer possible alternatives. And I'll show you that. The Weather Bureau tells people that there's a hurricane coming, you'll have to leave your house because it's so much, so powerful. They give it a number. And I stop the cars and say, where are you going? I said, I don't know, but I'm going. They tell them to leave your home. If you design the buildings like this, no whirlwind or tornado can pick the roof off because it whirl around. You understand? And inside and outside is a turbine on the roof that's turned by the wind. That keeps the food in the refrigerator from spoiling and keeps the lights going. Because if you have a terrible hurricane, you might have a power outage for a week. All the food spoils. Congressmen don't think this way. They tell you to leave your home. So if we build these all through America, wherever we have tornadoes or anything like that, that's caring to me. It's just, yeah, but does your system care? The whole system is based on caring. There's no killing, no soldiers, no prisons, no police. Because this is what's needed all through the West Indies, all through areas where people are dead. When I worked for Northrop Aircraft Company, I came up with this. And Northrop said that's too far out. He wouldn't go this far. So I began to work on airplanes and think in terms of when the plane lands. I don't know, is there anybody here never flew in an airliner? All right, well, you have to take my word for this. They tell you under the seat is an air cushion. You pull it out and it inflates in case we have to land in the sea. I'm sure you've heard that. Well, if you land in the North Sea, you'll only live for 12 minutes. You know, leave with your raft. So the passenger section can disengage. When the plane lands, it disengages and goes down into the air terminal. Another one comes up full of people and you take off. That gives you 3 times as many airplanes. But if you wait till everybody gets out of the airplane doesn't need to rest. You understand? So the whole thing is full of shit. Now, if you're coming in for landing, sometimes the landing gear doesn't come down. You get stuck up there. And most people are not killed in air crashes. They're killed by fire. So the minute the landing gear doesn't come down, the fuel is blown out. It's connected with the landing gear. So you glide in. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the chances of being killed are less, that's all. Now, sometimes you land perfectly and the brakes fail and the plane plows into another plane or people. The minute the brakes fail, that causes a resting gear to come up on the runway. That's like a net with steel wires to stop the airplane in its tracks. There's no commercials, no advertising in the future. There's nothing like that. And you don't have to come to Fresco and say, can I go sailing this Saturday? I say, there's 15 people before you. We build more boats than people ask for. So you can go out anytime you want to without filling out a form. The minute you get on a boat, you wear a little thing like you've got around your neck. That tells who you are, whether you're diabetic or whatever you are. When you go to a restaurant, the minute you sit at a table, the menu lights up. Otherwise, there's a picture there. And when the menu lights up, you can verbalize or dial what you want. But there's a little gadget that scans you. If you're diabetic, it adjusts the food to your condition. You don't have to say, I'm a diabetic, I can't have whipped cream and honey together. You don't have to say anything anymore. Because that's what I mean by government in the future. It's the chairs, the furniture, everything is smart. When you walk out of your room, the lights go out. Saves electricity. You don't have to turn them off. When you pull a book up a little closer, the lettering gets larger on the book. See, we haven't begun to apply knowledge to the world. We're still very primitive, and we're not going to make the history books of the future. They won't even be interested in reading about us. Our problems are technical, not political. 100 years ago, politics was great. We had no other system, or very little. Today, I want to move all people out of government. There's the government. That's that picture behind you. See the globe and the image screens? That's the government of the future. No people, because people fucked up every time they were in the government. They all become corrupt, they get paid off, you go to war again, you have depressions. It never put an end to anything. Here's how that works. The Department of Agriculture is a computerized system, but it's not one computer, it's 6 computers connected on separate circuits. If one fails, the other takes over. Here's how it works. The computers go into the soil. If the water table drops, that pumps water out there, the computers. If the nutrients change, it pumps nutrients out. Do you understand? Now, those of you that don't understand what I'm talking about 10 months ago now, IBM was working with computers, and they found that they can do about 1,000 trillion bits of information per second. Now, no group of humans can do that. I don't care what school they went to. 1,000 trillion bits of information per second. So if you build one world in the future, your computer should be connected to industry, transportation, because they're the only thing that can handle a global system. Man can't. If you still don't understand me, when I was a kid, a man used to look out of an airplane and say, I'm about a mile high. Today they have Doppler radar. You know what that is? It sends a signal down the earth, back up, and tells you you're 5,300 feet, 7 inches off the ground. No human can do that. You understand? So people have been writing articles against the Venus Project, saying that this guy wants to use machines to decide everything. That's not true. It's just that man can't do that. That's why we want Doppler radar. Now there's night vision glasses, infrared rays, where you can see soldiers walking in the woods in pitch black with infrared. No human can do that. So they're now putting those on robots and machine guns. And when a guy appears in a certain type of uniform, the guns fire. But no human can do that. It isn't that I think more of machines than I do of people. I'm just telling you the reason why we have a machine government, because it can do a better job. Those of you here don't remember, I don't think you do, when people used to operate elevators. It used to be a woman turning a crank, and the elevator didn't quite get to the floor. She had to keep moving that till it got there. Now today you press 17, the elevator takes you right there. It doesn't stop in between or anything like that. Do you follow me? So when they say, this is Sky Fresco wants a machine government, I want people in government. They have feelings. They care. Machines don't care. Well, your goddamn computer can put you in touch with anyone in the world. You know what I mean? And people that are roboticists, that study robotics, they're writing books on the machines that are going to take over. That is not true, because a machine has no ambition. It doesn't want to take over. It doesn't have a gut reaction. If you take your computer and smash it in front of 50 brand new ones, they don't say, we'll get you if it isn't this week or next week. We'll get you. They don't give a shit. If you work your computer Saturday and Sunday and Monday, they'll say, hey, get off my back. Give me 2 days off. Machines don't care. They don't want to take over. That's a human projection. Hollywood makes movies of the robots choking the designer. Robots have no gut feeling, no ambition. So the robots in government, all they do is survey the farms and the population and know how much food to grow, because there's so many people that need food. You know what I mean? They don't tell you what to do. They just manage the technology. They do not control people. I want you to remember that. The Venus Project computers in government do not control people. They control railway, distribution of goods and services, automation, all that, but not people. Okay? Now, machines are extensions of human attributes, like you would phone your grandmother. She lives 3 miles away. Are you going to be in Saturday? She says, yes, do come and visit me. But before the telephone, he'd walk over to grandmother and she wasn't there. So the telephone is an extension. Do you understand that? All machines are extensions. Like when you used to dig with your hands, you got a shovel and you dig and it's easier. So people say, I hate machines. There are people talking about a new machine coming in their workplace and they lost their job. So they're mad at the machine. But the machines of the future free you from a job. You know what I mean? There's no coal miners in the future. Coal is dug by machine and automatically. We don't want people to do dirty or dangerous jobs. Got it? We don't need people for those repetitious jobs. I'm against taking a young lady like you and putting her behind a counter in a department store. What can I do for you, ma'am? That's not using her head. She's selling Tangy lipstick, hair lotion. She works there 18 years, then she retires. You know what she's got up here? Hair lotion, lipstick, and shit like that. And if you type for a corporation for 17 years, then you retire, you know what you got up here? Corporate letters. That's not using the head of people whenever they do repetitious jobs. So we want to shut down all repetitious jobs, automate it, free people. So when a new machine comes in, I see you and I say, by the way, you work 8 hours a day, now you work 4 hours a day. The machine does 10 times as much as you. So I can pay you more. They don't do that. They downsize. They get rid of you. Or they ship it to China where labor is cheap. Even if they cared, they, instead of paying your help, say $5.60 an hour, he pays his help $10 an hour. He's a nice guy. He builds a playground for the children of the mothers that work in this plant. He can't compete. You understand? You can't compete with him if he ships to China. So you either have to learn to ship things to China or get the hell off your ethics. So going to church, believing in God, using words like nice guy, ethics, you can't afford to be ethical. Suppose you work in a department store and a woman says, how much is that lamp? And you say, it's $20. She says, I'll take 2. But you being a Christian, a real Christian, you say, if you go down 2 blocks, you get the same lamp for $10. You wouldn't be working in my store very long. You understand? It's hard to be decent in a money world. Got it? Okay. So I'm saying the root of all evil, even in the Bible, says the love of money is the root of all evil. Jesus, if you're religious, I'm not, chased the money changers out of the temple. Now they're all back in. We gave the money, the public funds, to the people that created the problem. Did you know that? You have to show people, you have to teach them a lot of things, of course. There's such a thing called dynamic equilibrium in nature. That means if you have 100 acres here and you have 2 fox and 4 rabbits or 6 rabbits, and rabbits eat the roots of plants. If a drought comes, the rabbits die and the fox die. But if there's lots of roots growing, the rabbits will multiply, so will the fox. But the fox can't multiply beyond the carrying capacity of that environment. In other words, if you produce more people than the earth can feed, you're going to have riots, hunger, crime. So we must study the carrying capacity of every regional district of the earth and maintain a population in accordance with the carrying capacity, not Fresco's opinions. You understand? I'm not a dictator. I want you to understand that. That isn't a bunch of scientists telling people what to do. First, we measure how much transportation do we have, how much arable land area. That tells how many people the earth can support. Then you do a global survey of national health, all kinds of physical diseases. You build your hospitals in accordance with your survey. You don't put up a hospital, hope you get enough clients for the next 4 years, because hospitals go bankrupt. The system is no good. It's detrimental in every area. I can't think of anything this system has except technology. We're moving forward in that area. Other areas, we're backward. And then you find out that the scientists in the early days, in my first book called Looking Forward, I don't know if you ever saw that book. It's off print for years. But in that book, I say that the scientists used to write books on why man can't fly. And the Wright brothers never read those books, so they built a flying machine. So when scientists do that, they're in violation of scientific method. Here's how you do that. I can't conceive of how man can fly. You can say that, but if you say man can't ever fly, when he'll never get to the moon, just say, I can't conceive of how that can be done. That's the way to talk in the future. You don't build enemies, you don't get angry, you're not hurting the other person. But a lot of people have come off with a strong ego, and that's one of the most detrimental things. When you learn to surrender your ego for sharing ideas, that's the beginning of real progress. So you can start with that kind of thing. Tell them, and another good idea is to tell people that you were just like they were once. You thought the same way. Otherwise, if you come in as a superior being, they don't like it. Do you know what I mean? So just say, I fucked up just as you did. I did all these stupid things. They don't want you to be smarter than they are. Don't forget, when you run into an egotist, what they call egotist, they try to maintain their position of leadership. But you say, I read this in Reader's Digest, make the same facial expression, like just the other day I read that a man can do this or that. Now I did read in Reader's Digest about a young girl, she was about 15 or 16. She said she was about to get in an airline and something came over her. She doesn't know what it is. She didn't get on, and 150 people were killed in that plane. And she said, Jesus saved me. So I read she was going to speak at the Hollywood Presbyterian Church. And she was telling the congregation about that. And when she got through talking to them, they said, God bless you, amen. So I walked up to the pulpit and said, Jesus didn't want you, he wanted the 150 people. See, it worked like a charm. And because people were, when I waited outside the church, they shook my hand. And they said, I never thought of it that way. Because when you say, Jesus saved me, who the hell are you to put yourself in that position? I try to tell people that, but if you say in the church, I wanted to see what would happen if I said that. And I waited outside the church and people were very friendly. If they're religious, this is everything all the religions talk about. It's the brotherhood of man on earth. There's no separation of people, no exploitation of one human. So if they don't get that, say they don't get it, they say, well, my kingdom is up there, not on earth. Here's the answer. There's a thing called the Lord's Prayer, where Jesus says, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There's no money in heaven, no business, no private ownership. So get them on that. See, so this is the nearest thing to religion translated. I'm not religious. I don't believe in gods or demons. But I do believe that if we do something like this, the contributions made would be so enormous, the progress, without restriction. We give every lab whatever they need. No more digging up nickels and dimes for heart research. We give every lab whatever the hell they need. You understand? A straight man comes to people as though everybody understands logic. And all you do is talk to them. You can get the hell beat out of you, too, being reasonable. Let's say you're very reasonable and you're in the army. And you see you're in a foreign country. And you see rustling in the bushes. He goes, brrr. You say, maybe it's one of our boys, hurt, trying to get back. He goes over and gets shot. You know what I mean? You don't. So being reasonable sometimes, you can get killed. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay. So what you want to do is play the game that the person you're with. You assume where they're at, and then you try to come at them. If it doesn't work, you come at it another way. Don't use the same system. Until you develop 50 different ways of approaching people. That's the only way you can turn them around.
Do you have any of those written down, or you just know them all?
Well, I don't say I know them all. I learn new ones every year. Then I also say I never made a mistake in my life. Now let me tell you what that means. The first guy that took nitric acid and glycerin and began to play with it, the building disappeared. So did the guy. His brother-in-law wrote, "Never fool with that stuff." That's how it comes out. Now there was a guy that built a set of wings. This is true. They were 3 feet long, and he jumped off the Eiffel Tower, and he died. And his cousin wrote, "Make wings larger next time." Where the hell do you think it comes from? That's what I mean by nobody makes a mistake. They do what they know, which may be limited, and they get hurt. You know what I mean when I say I never made a mistake? If I'm mixing stuff together to make a stronger plastic, I don't know what these things are going to do. Neither does a metallurgist. He mixes different metals together to see what happens. But he can't make a mistake. If it turns white hot and burns his fingers, he writes in his book, "Don't fool with that," or "Don't work with that." Where do you think you get it from? That's why no one ever makes a mistake.
That kind of goes along with the whole thing of like nobody really actually makes decisions.
That's
They-
right.
Yeah.
They're forced by background.
Yeah.
When a guy says, "I'm going to marry a Swedish girl," yeah, she must be Swedish. You know? And I had a friend that was Swedish, and every time it was lightning, his mother used to come out and say, "Jesus is coming, Jesus is coming." Now that was her reaction to lightning. Was that her decision? No, she got it in Sweden. We don't make our own decisions, although I feel like I'm making them. Why do more people do terrible things? Why don't they listen to you? As because it's hard to understand what I'm talking about. When you say, "I believe in this country, it's the greatest country in the world," very simple. Guy says, "I agree with you." But if you go into detail of how America got to be that way, that's too heavy. They fall asleep. You know what I mean? So intellect is difficult because there's so many questions that it brings up. And when you say, "I'm just a plain old American, I love this country, if you don't like it, get the fuck out." See, it's easy to understand, isn't it? So that's why most people are simplistic, because it's easy to grasp. Do the right thing, that's all. What's the right thing? Guy says, "Every time I ask you a question, I get a lecture. I want an answer." You know, there are no answers. It's very complex, every question a person asks. How come some people work real hard and others don't work at all? It isn't because he's lazy. Okay, that's clear. But if you go into the background of how he gets to be that way, why he avoids work, you go into the nature of the factors that shape human behavior. You know what I mean? That's too complicated. So you have to, when you meet somebody new, if you want to go to work on them, let's assume that that's what you want to do. First I ask them, "Who do you admire more than anyone in the world?" When I first meet him, I know nothing about. He says, "One Punch Malone." He knocked a guy out, one punch. That's a 20-year project, I get off right away. If that's the guy you admire, after all your life experiences, the man's a pinhead. You can't take off 15 years to turn him around. It's not worth it. So do a survey first. What do you like? What are you interested in? Me. and get off. If it's an ego thing, okay? There are people more worthwhile closer to this point of view. Tackle them first. And another thing you should know, you don't need to convince everybody. It takes 7,000 people to operate everything on Earth. You don't need everybody going to work. With automation, you don't need everybody's approval. You know what I mean? And don't speak to win approval. Politicians do that. They speak to win approval. The scientists, if everybody believes the Earth is flat, they move right in. They say, "You're wrong. It's round. And this is the evidence." So don't speak to win approval. I don't speak to it. I just tell you what I believe. If you can't stand it, you walk out. But most people that come here have read a little bit about Zeitgeist or the Venus Project, so they're easier. But if I just go to a cold audience, I don't come on this strong. I come on a little softer, and if they can be in the move, I get stronger and stronger and pull back and go forward. You know, you have to play it like a chess game. Make your moves. Don't assume that people can understand language. That assumption will get you into trouble. A senator said to me, Jock, if you succeed in moving people real fast, if the Venus Project grows too fast, the government might pick you up because you're a threat. I said, how do you do that? I am not involved in any drugs. He said, all we do is put drugs in your car and pick you up. And your friends will say, there was always something strange about Fresco anyway. You know, because they control the media and everything else. So if I'm in jail, all right. But I understand the dangers of advocating total social change. I don't want to kill capitalists or kill communists or anybody. I just want to say the direction you're moving in was good 100 years ago. But you will be better off in the new society. The wealthiest people will be better off in the new society than the wealthiest today. Because if you talk to multimillionaires, they're very stupid people as a rule. Investment bankers don't read outside their field. And don't take my word for it. Try talking about anything significant. They're not very bright. So you are either going to have to take the time out. If the guy is sincere, you can reach him. If the man really believes in God, if he's sincere, he'd say, well, where did all this come from if there's no God? He would ask questions. Yeah. Well, if you don't believe it, I do. And you're going straight to hell. That's an ego problem. A truly religious person says, I feel sorry for you for not believing in God. What is it that you don't accept? They would invite, that's a good Christian. And there are doctors like that, called Doctors Without Borders. They go to poor countries, they work for a few years, save up a couple of $100, and go and help the poor. They are real Christians. Larry once asked me, Larry King, he said, Doc, what do you think of Christianity? That's a wonderful idea. When are they putting it into practice? I've never met a Christian. I really have never met, except these doctors that may be Christian. Or the Christian that works for so many years, then he goes to the undeveloped countries and tries to teach them how to grow food. That's a real Christian to me. People go to church as a rule as an investment. You know, they don't go because they love Jesus so much. They go there and they give 10% of their income and look up and say, how am I doing? You know, when an atheist helps an old lady across the street, he cares. You know, he doesn't do it to say, am I going to heaven? You know, the Christian is a very insecure person, generally poorly informed. Looking for justice will kill you. There's no such thing. Whatever happens is real. What you think should have happened is not real. So you're disappointed not in the world, in your value system. It's your value system that's screwed up, not the world. So if you say, well, that's terrible what people did Wednesday. They killed a black guy and he was the wrong guy. Well, that's within probability. Whatever happens is real. Can you remember that? What you think should have happened is not. I've been fair to my wife, decent. I bought her everything she ever asked for. She ran away with the milkman. So what are you looking for? You don't know your wife's value systems that well. It's what it means. Or you don't know enough about people. Right? Now that's very hard to accept. Whatever happens is real. You go in for an examination one day and says you got the last stages of cancer. You should have come much earlier. You got about 4 months to live, wrap up your problems. Very hard for people to say, I see. You know what I mean? But I'm only 40 years old. I'm only a kid and I'm bald. I lost my head from radiation, my hair. You know, the kid says, that's not fair. I haven't even begun to live yet. And mother says, that's not fair too, you know. But whatever happens is real. Malaria, disease, people die. Young and old. And they die because we don't have sufficient research in all those areas. They even ask me questions like, do you believe in love? So I said, one of the greatest frauds put out there. So they said, you know, what do you mean? I said, do you like everything you've ever done in your life? Do you? Do you? Nobody does, right? So if you live with a replica of yourself, how long would you be together? Not very long. So sometimes you like yourself, sometimes you don't, sometimes a great deal. It's a fluctuating thing. So if you get married or live with a girl, sometimes you'll love her very much, sometimes a little less. Sometimes you get mad at her and hate the guy you're with. And so it's a fluctuating thing. Do you understand? I try to teach people that nothing is constant. The only thing that's constant is change. When you fall in love at 16, or they fall in love at 20, it's very different. And at 35, your concepts of the right person is different again. You know what I mean? So people fall in and out of love continuously because it's not a fixed thing. I hope you understand that. Okay? All right. If you understand that, if you keep up with say your husband's a doctor, he comes home and he says, I just worked on cancer, the fifth lumbar. And you say, what is that exactly? If you share more ideas you share with your boyfriend, not just sex and kissing and necking, that's a little bit. That's why the guy is always going off looking for other tits and ass. Because there's not enough in common, you know what I mean? But if you share social ideas, your thinking with your boyfriend, his ideas, his fields of interest, then it's hard to leave. Do you understand that? Okay. So if people don't get along with each other, they should be free to move out, not to pay some lawyer $2,000 because you can't relate. And who's this guy with a white collar? As I pronounce your man or wife. Where the hell did he come from? You know what I mean? So if you like someone, you live with them. If it doesn't work, you say, say you meet a person and you fall in love with her, and she's got 15 qualities that you like. You're now married 3 years, and you meet a girl with 60 qualities that you like. You get confused. Do I really love my wife, or do I love Jennifer? If you keep up with the people, you love them all the time. You know, if you don't share, if you're just wiping the baby's ass and cooking for him, then he'll pass you by. But if you share your life, do you see what I mean there? Love, it can be very constructive kind of thing, or it can be self-centered. Okay? And it has to do with movies. It has to do with faces you see that you learn to associate pleasantly and faces that you don't. So our judgment is tampered with by movies, books, people that we've known. We have no natural instincts. All that's bullshit. It's learned. Hard to believe, because I feel I make my own decisions. I don't feel I've been conditioned to make it, because it's happened ever since I was this high. I don't even know what I'm doing. You know, when I make a decision, if I go to a movie and I see a girl that looks like you, and she's very nice in the movie, so every time I go to a social, I look for a girl that looks like you. But if I see a girl that looks like you, and she was very mean to me, when I go to a social, I whisper, I don't know what it is, but I don't like her looks. That's neural lag. You know what that means? The brain lags. One thing a computer has over the mind of men, it can delete what you don't use. We can't. If you're brought up to hate certain people, you can't delete it. You can outgrow it, which takes a long time. But the computer can delete whole sections. And we can't do that with the human brain. So that's why I want machines in government. They don't have carryovers, prejudice. They don't have fixed notions. I got most of these ideas from the human body. If the brain says, I do all the thinking, and the lungs would say, if I don't oxygenate the blood, you die as a brain. So the brain says to the lung, what do you need? Everything you need. Access immediately to whatever I need. And that goes for all the organs of the body. They all get whatever they need. Otherwise, you couldn't operate. You'd only live a few hours. If every organ fought for its own gain and did not consider the overview, I would say that it wouldn't work. So all the organs of the human body get whatever it needs. If you had a free enterprise system in the human body, you'd probably live about 4 hours or less. Every organ fighting each other, taking what they can, depriving other organs of what they need, it wouldn't work. So you've got a congregation of billions of cells, and most of them work together. The parasitic cells are the ones that take from the body and make no contribution. And that's what you got in the monetary system. So I would say that the human body evolved over millions of years, and this seems to be a process in all living systems. So I felt if that's what nature had evolved over billions of years, we've only been around a short time. So we can learn a lot from the human body. I'm just trying to tell you, there's so many different aspects of the Venus Project. Look at the tapes, read the book, pick up as much as you can before you even try to talk to people. And whenever they use that term human nature, they think that some people are good, some are bad, some are geniuses. Let's say you're 8 years old and you draw very well. Normal people don't know how to look at that, so they say he's gifted. That means I have the slightest idea of how it is that you draw well. And so whenever they use language like you're talented, or say you were born with a distribution in the brain of what they call neurotransmitters in a particular area of your brain. So she picks up a book and she reads it once and she can remember every word. But in other areas of her brain, she doesn't have a good sense of balance. She doesn't have good judgment in certain areas, but she can remember things. But if she's born that way, why give her credit for it? She didn't make her brain. If you're a born artist, why the hell give you any grade for it? Do you know what I'm getting at? So you take these people that believe that some people are born that way, then you don't give them credit for it. They're not born that way. When other kids were out playing baseball, he was home drawing. You know what I mean? So he picked up more bits in that area. When I first met Roxanne, her drawings were lousy. You know, so the point is, I went to work on it and taught her how all the laws. That's why I can teach anybody to draw. It's not an inborn thing. You just have to know the mechanisms. That goes for medicine, botany, everything. It's lawful. If you know the laws real well, you can take a serial killer and make a saint. The difference between a serial killer and a saint is environment. That's a very hard thing to accept because that raises lots of questions. A Spanish kid is never born speaking Spanish. He has to learn it. And an English kid doesn't speak English. They used to think that if you took two children, say Chinese and an English baby, and bring them to China, that the Chinese kid will probably learn to speak Chinese faster than the English kid because of generations of speaking Chinese. They tried that. They both learn at the same rate. You can't pass on inherited character experience. Like if you become good at the bow and arrow, you have to teach your kid how to use it. If you don't teach people, they become the same as anyone else. So we found out that you can't pass on acquired things like bigotry, prejudice, greed. That's all learned in your culture or your subculture. 2 Catholic priests used to come to my sessions, and they said, I know 2 people from the same environment. One turned out to be a gangster, the other a minister. If environment is everything, how do you get those differences? That's when you pick up the young kid and just play with it while the 7-year-old got that lower lip out. So when the young kid falls down the stairs, the 7-year-old has a grin on his face. There's no such thing as the same environment. You see what I'm getting at? Even though you think you came from the same environment. Says, I was in an environment where everybody hated each other. Now I love everybody. Well, obviously he read a book or met somebody unusual or had a new experience. But there's something that changes us. It doesn't happen up here alone. It was my grandfather that made it difficult for me to pledge allegiance. But without that, I may have been normal. And it scares the shit out of me. Okay. Even our geneticists now are looking for the Republican gene. Did you know? How stupid can you be? You live in a Republican environment. They were looking for the gay gene, too. Now, if you bring up a normal baby, no normal baby boy, in the feminine environment, say 5 women that are very effeminate in manner. Women move differently than men. Their facial expressions, their hand movements are different. So if that boy is brought up with 5 women, and they say, "Oh, did I see a gorgeous hat?" That little boy will move just like a woman. Exactly. You say, "Oh, I want to go too." Facial expressions, everything. You learn. But if you bring up a little girl with a butch old man that likes to go hunting, she'll walk around like a guy and use the gun like I flip it around. You understand? Women's behavior is picked up from the culture. We separate men and women in this culture. In the future, women will wear long hair or short hair, men will wear long hair or short hair. They're made that way by being around women that are very effeminate, that move this way, and facial expressions, the eyes, everything of women move differently than men. So if you bring up a normal boy with a maiden that takes care of him only, and she's very effeminate, he'll pick up those same movements. Do you understand what I'm saying? Just like a Frenchman would say, "Vive la France," with a French accent. Now, when a Nazi sees a Nazi flag, he gets a lump in his throat. When a Jew sees it, he spits. So the difference between a Nazi and a Jew is the environment they're raised in. Do you understand? If the Jewish baby is raised in a Nazi culture, he will behave like a Nazi. It's the culture that gives you your values. So if you raise a little girl, you put a bow in her hair, and little girls don't climb trees, and they don't do this, and they don't do that, you monitor your girl so she doesn't do the thing. But little boys raised together, they might form a piss stream out there. I've seen them piss each other. And then another kid said, "Did you ever see Billy shit?" And he said, "No, let's watch him shit. He has to take a shit." And they watch the way the shit comes out, hits the ground. Girls are discouraged from doing that. So that's why men are more creative than women. Now, the guy that watched the shit come out and hit the ground invented the extrusion. Did you know that? Based upon excretion. Being thin when you're constipated, fat when you're not, you know. So if men, you know, like I used to throw spiders at girls when I was a kid in school. And they go, "Ah!" But today girls collect spiders, you know what I mean? Depends on the background. So they don't react the same way anymore. So in the universal world where people are broadly educated, you can't do that. Because girls will be just as curious about things as men are. When I was a kid, boys used to drop bricks on the subway train. Their lives were very flat, uninteresting, and they needed excitement. They're not bad. They drop a brick on it because it's some event. And they used to take nails, you know what a horseshoe nail is, and put it on the railroad tracks. When the train went over, it made a knife for them. So the boys used to do that. They were terrible children. Another time, kids got together and they tied a kitten across the railroad tracks, brick on one side, brick on the other, to see how the train goes over the kitten. That's why when kids go to movies, they stay to see when the plane bombed the cities or the 2 planes hit midair for excitement. Their lives are so flat, it has no excitement. That's why they watch prize fights. That's why they have automobile racing, to get excitement and recognition. But if kids have a thrilling life, an exciting life, they don't want to see that. So we have to fulfill those needs. See, what the hell you get out of an air show where a woman flies a plane upside down? Next year she has to fly upside down through a hangar. And I used to think that women were all very fuzzy and frizzy about certain things until I saw 2 girls ride a motorcycle in a barrel. You ever see that? In the opposite direction, passing. And then I saw a girl hanging from an airplane landing gear, picked up a handkerchief from the ground. And that changed my attitude about women not being daring. Depends on the way you're brought up. I began to look at things very differently because of my environment. I've achieved what I've achieved because I stood on the shoulders of giants. You know what that means? We learn from our own mistakes and other people. We learn a great deal. But sometimes we feel bad about it because we try something that doesn't work. Dr. Ehrlich did 606 experiments. Edison said he used 7,000 different elements before he found one that didn't burn out. So kids think you go into a lab and you come out with an invention. No, like I always say this, than normal people. I make more mistakes than anybody I know because I try more things and they don't work. The newer the idea, the less apt it is to work. The first airplanes that I built, the first type of helicopters I built, shook to pieces and broke. And I got enough reward by sticking with it. I didn't need approval from other kids. Whenever I went to an model airplane meeting, I came with an unusual type airplane. They were not conventional. And the kids were like, what the hell's that supposed to be? They didn't say, that's interesting. What the hell's that supposed to be? Is that an airplane? You know, and if I flew it, it usually didn't fly too well because it was brand new. You have to modify it over time. And normal kids get conditioned to seek approval. And well, the best thing I can say is what I did to my kid. I said to him, to the little boy, after I read about the animals, read to him about all the animals, he said, Daddy, can we go to the zoo and see these animals? I said, yes. He says, when? I said, next month. Next month? That's to build a hunger, not take him there right away. So in a month, I took him there, and he spent a lot of time at each animal, really looking in detail. So then, when he was most interested, I said, I have a business appointment back in town. I have to leave in 10 minutes. He said, Daddy, this is interesting. I said, I'm sorry. Now, that was deliberate. I had no meeting to take him away from something he was really studying. Then in his room, I put drawing paper and clay, and he was making elephants. They weren't very good. All kinds of animals and drawing and bad drawings. I said, outside and play with the other kids. But I like doing this. I said, get out and play with the other kids. He hated my guts, but that was deliberate. Other kids have nothing new to say. I can run faster than you. I bet I can fight you. You know, nothing new. I wanted him to like being by himself, making things. So I interrupted it. Where did I get the idea? I read the life of Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. They all had these interruptions. But if you give a kid all the things you never had, you produce a nothing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. I give kids seeds, and they put it in a pot, and they water it, and put it out in the sun. And as the shoots begin to grow, I have them cover, and so they know that the plant of itself doesn't grow. It needs sunlight, water, soil, temperature, summer, you know, gravity, all that. So the kids learn that. Then I have them block the sun again and hold hands, say 10 kids, and pray while the sun is blocked. And they pray, and the plants begin to wither. I said, form a bigger circle, pray harder. It says in the Bible, all prayers are answered. And they hold hands, and they pray, and the seed dies. You understand? So they say, the only thing is take that block away and let the sun hit the plant. Or let the sun hit the plant and stop watering it and pray. Do you understand? So they understand that prayer, if it's not connected to watering, sunlight, does not work. Why doesn't a guy without an eyeball pray for an eyeball? Because it never worked. That's why a guy doesn't go to Lourdes with one leg missing and say, I need a leg, God. Look, there's no leg there. Bingo, a leg comes on. People never pray for anything, and that's real too. So if Lourdes is real, that would happen. There's no evidence to this day to show that a person got an eyeball through prayer, or a leg, or an arm. So it's false. But it says in the Bible, all prayers are answered. And instead of me saying that's not so, I have the kids test it. So they come out different than other kids. Not because they're convinced of what I say, but they find out through actual experience. It's called hands-on learning. Book learning is good, but you have to put them out in the field to get the feel that plants need water, sunlight, and temperature. They need all kinds of things. Of itself, they can do nothing. Okay, guys. Pick up whatever you want. Just go to work. And we work all the time. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, no vacations. We work because the thing is going downhill, and I'm afraid of the future human race. So we can't take time out to hope it'll all work out by itself. It won't. You'll only see it a form of fascism, an American brand. They're trying to install it now. Fascism means severe control and rigidity and privatization of everything. So I hope there's nobody that's angry here of anything I said. Anybody, did you learn anything today? You raise your hand so I can see. Oh, okay. As long as you got something useful. Yes. Okay.